And we are live. Hi, everybody. Welcome in. Michael here. In this video, I will be going over the SBA EIDL Loan Increase Alternative, as well as showing you how to get ready for this up to $55 billion coming up, what's happening in the upcoming weeks, and so forth, as well as going in through some of these bonus tips surrounding perhaps business checking accounts, understanding banking activity, and so much more. But before I do so, let me do this one quick thing. I forgot I had my Apple AirPod in my left ear. Good. Now, let me know if you're watching right now in the comments with the hashtag live or hashtag replay if you're watching later on during that time interval. This was unannounced, more spontaneous. Usually I will broadcast it out to you, but this time I haven't. So yesterday, very quickly, I pretty much took the day off. I had to go shopping for a wedding, so I had to go look for a whole piece suit. I already have the shirt, the bottoms, the shoes, looking for a vest, looking for the right suit to match it. And I don't want to overspend. There's a time and a place for that, but it isn't for this one, but I may end up having to, but I just don't want to go too far into what I'm doing there on the personal side of my life. But going to a wedding in California on May 19th is when we leave. So we should be arriving there around 8 or so in the morning, perhaps a little bit later in LAX. And I'm going to be around in the Orange County, Huntington Beach, Garden Grove area, as well as like Riverside, San Bernardino. That's where the two spots are going to be back and forth for like the wedding and the reception and everything like that. But anyways, I also took the day off yesterday in memory of my dog. So my dog passed away 3 or so months ago, and yesterday was his birthday. Would have been his 16th. In fact, he is 16. And so I took time off so I could cerebrally be in the right headspace, not be energy deficient, not put a lot of time into things, and so forth. So I pretty much took that day off. I had to go to the store, but I also, wanted to take time off to, almost pray and really just be in a better frame of mind, that I'm not thinking about work or how tired I am after one of these videos and so forth. So I spent a lot of time on that, and I, went to a little spot in my home where we have like little things together, and I went to go hang out there. But anyways, aside from that, what I want to get into is, what is this $55 billion about? So this is the Restaurant Revitalization Fund that will be given out, hopefully. It's been passed through the House. It still has to go through the Senate approval, how they're going to be coming together next week. There's not an exact time frame on when this will be released, but we're looking at, if it does, for this bill, about $55 billion towards the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. Those individuals who perhaps were stuck in the queue, didn't get anything out of it, hadn't even applied yet, and so forth. About $42 billion of that will be allocated to restaurants in need, possibly severely hurt by COVID with this COVID relief bill. And then another $13 billion will be going towards hard impacted areas in those parts of the economy. Right? You have to show demonstrated, like the SBA EIDL loans, that you were severely or hardly impacted. And there will be a little bit of information, but I won't go into that into this video. I've made other content, as well as if you'd like to learn more about all SBA funding, as well as all other private loans, etc. I'll leave links to those down below in the description. Excuse me for that. I was getting a phone call. It's time to put you on silent. I didn't put it on silent earlier because I needed to get a call. But $13 billion to severely hardly impacted areas, and then about $1 billion or so worth will be going into grants. So be on the lookout for that. But I also, at the same time, would not just be sitting on that. Perhaps you would qualify, but at the same time, it's best to explore what are all of your options, whether you qualify there or you don't. Excuse me. The truth of the matter is, and I'm going to segment into this. Just had a That's what happens when I eat milk, when I eat cereal. Good thing I didn't combine it with one of my fruit drinks or one of my vegetable drinks, because that would really get me going. But next week, I will be releasing a video on an SBA EIDL loan alternative through the SBA 7A program. More specifically, that video, that's what I did pretty much today. That video will detail so much that you'll want to make sure you listen through it from the beginning all the way to the end, because that video alone will give you all the juicy details. If you qualify, if you don't, how does it work? How it doesn't work? Excuse me. I didn't think about saying it that way. But that video right there will be very revealing to each and every one of you. So if you're expecting, like I get a lot of emails and I got a lot of people who are saying, if we can do an SBA loan, that would be better because of the interest rates. I get that. But you also have to be realistic. And I'll speak about it in that video, but I'll touch upon it right now. To realistically get an SBA 7A loan, 504 loan, any other government-assisted loan, perhaps outside of a microloan, perhaps not even looking at the SBA mentoring, that's not even a loan program. But you have to have sufficient credit history. And what I mean by this is it's not just by a number. You could tell me you have a 680, 700 FICO, 850 and above FICO credit score, wherever you're at. The thing we look at is your credit reports, consumer reports, business credit, if so forth, how much of that, credit worthiness, liquid credit, depending on also how much you're asking for. Can it be overlooked with stronger consumer credit and so forth of those three main credit bureaus? Not even factoring the business credit bureaus in a lot of cases. If it's not efficiently where it needs to be, like I've been on phone calls today, more than I have been in a long time, to be honest with you. I don't just get on calls, but they were very important. And I spoke with a variety of individuals today. If you're in here watching, I do appreciate your time on that call. And yes, I am a bit exhausted, but I'm here for you. And I want to make sure you guys get the most amount of value moving into next week as well. And so what I said on these phone calls, one of my latest clients wanting to purchase an existing business, perhaps you're in here. I won't say a name. I'm going to speak to the behavior. Purchasing an existing business. Well, you have the revenue we're looking for, the credit score, without going through the consumer credit reports and so forth, looks good. Your time in business is pretty strong. And I'm talking about, let's start off with that. I'm not talking about just 2 years worth. 2 years worth, oh man. They don't want to see the bare minimum. They don't even want to see 3 years. They want to see 4, 5 and above. If not better, 10 plus years of experience. But again, that isn't enough. We also have to look at your use of funds, which is, for this example, the purchase of an existing business. Okay, but now we have to look extensively into your credit. And SBA loans are usually a harder credit pool. For the SBA 7A program, Ariana? Or which one? So when myself and our underwriting team are going through your consumer credit reports or just your credit report history, and we see that you have too much debt, your debt to income ratio, even at 100,000, 50,000 is looking better, but that's still a lot. You're getting an excessive amount of debt occurring. You're building so much debt with these credit cards you may have taken on and so forth. No worries. I'll talk about the requirements on, I think I'm going to release that video on Monday for the SBA 7A loan for the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. It's not concrete. It's the Restaurant Revitalization Fund going towards those restaurants that were severely impacted, and there was a different side of funding for that program. And so I won't get into that in this video. There will be more that unfolds over the time as well on what more concrete are those requirements as I get more information. But again, look out for that video coming out next week, guys. It'll be on the SBA 7A as well as much more treats. It'll be amazing stuff. I was thinking about doing it Tuesday where I'm thinking about something I don't want to really see it. But that's what you have to understand. Your debt to income ratio, you're taking on too much debt. I just told the lady on the phone call. Sweet lady, great listener. I don't like to talk just to talk, or do I love talking? I'm an introvert. But when I get to talking, it makes you got to listen to what I have to say. And then, I always want you to give me your input. So what I said was, okay, I asked her the question. You have everything you need here. Your expectations are that you're rate sensitive and you'd rather have longer term. So you're thinking about an SBA 7A loan, which a lot of people do. I don't blame you, for the purchase of this existing business over $300,000 and above you're asking for, with an average amount of revenue over $200,000. I won't say the exact amount. So with that in mind, your credit score just below 700, even if it were high enough, but if it were that below 700, usually what they want is a 680 and above, if not 650, but the minimum is insufficient, because then we have to look at your credit report history even more, and then that will be a huge factor in what we're looking at. So that wasn't going to work based off of what I saw there, the existing debt, taking on more than they can chew, excessive amounts, credit utilization ratio, or credit utilization is high, perhaps. And then right here, we looked at any other things, perhaps tax returns, if anything. With profitability, we're looking at about 10% in profits, if not 15 to 20% and above. And again, it's with those SBA loans, profit, credit. And it's usually the credit. It's not so much of profit all the time, but the credit. The credit is what gets people for not getting the funding. Let me see what you guys are putting in the comment section. I appreciate you guys. Let me know where you guys are tuning in from. If you have not already, shared that with me in the past, today. How's your Friday going? This was unplanned. So I want to let you guys know that sometimes I will do this if this is the first time you are tuning into one of these, or you're perhaps seeing my emails, but you're just ignoring them. I don't pressure anybody. Those emails are just like a quick follow-up. Just, hey, how are you doing? How's life? Are you still interested? And if you're not, it'd be better for me to get feedback, because without feedback, I'm not in the know. And that's become one of my biggest pet peeves, is when people say they're going to get back to you at a certain time. They still say they'll get back to you, but then when they say at a certain time, that's even worse. And they don't follow through. That to me shows a lot of punctuality. Sure, that you could be busy. A lot of excuses come up from time to time, and perhaps it is a very legitimate reason. And again, I believe we always have time. It's on our side more than we think. What we don't know how to use effectively, though, is our energy. It's our energy we don't know how to use. It's that we get too into I wear all the multiple hats, which is not bad. But when you start doing too much and you forget something that you said you were going to do over here, specifically you told somebody you were going to do it. I normally don't waste time and energy on that, because I'm a very punctual person. It's not to be mean to anybody, but if you say something, follow through. Don't show it. Don't come to me with more problems on top of problems. If something was given to you, go for it. But at the same time, not to get too ahead of myself, if you guys have been emailing me, trying to contact me, perhaps it's these messages. Sometimes I do miss the appointment and I don't let you know ahead of time because I forgot, and sometimes I get so busy on a project that I normally will. And the thing is, a lot of people don't show up. And a lot of people expect a phone call. I can't give them that because the energy and time, it would probably not be used effectively. And I'm all about energy saving and being time efficient. So I will get back to you in time. I haven't even done plenty of the questionnaires today. Really none, because I've been so busy on projects. I've had to get on calls. I've had to set things up. So tomorrow will be a real catch-up day. Tomorrow I should be on my grinding mode, so to speak. But let's see over here. Yes, the sales. How are you doing? Requirements are the challenge. Exactly. Yeah, Rihanna, you've been stuck for over a year trying to get EIDL increase with no luck. I'm sorry to hear all of that. I'm sure you've been very frustrated, and I've been there before where, like, if you don't get an amount or you're not being looked at and cared for, it really like does start to affect other parts of your life. I'm not saying it does to yours, but it's happened to me in the past, not anymore. And you're looking for other options. Okay. Have I sent you a questionnaire form? Have you filled that out for me? Everybody here, if you have not filled out a questionnaire form to get business funding or see what your options are, what I recommend you do, and I have it in the description, it should be there right now. It'll say business loan form, or I think business questionnaire form. Click that link. It'll take you over to my website, Viral Funding Solutions. Right there, you'll get a questionnaire. Excuse me. Please fill out that less than 30-second questionnaire. If you have everything in there, it should take you no longer than that. And then it'll land in my email. Once it does, I will analyze, evaluate it, and give you a proper response back on your best funding option and options. Very thoroughly broken down into introductions. I care about you, like I do. Like I'll ask you, how are you doing? How are things going? Before pretty much anything else. And if you're open to responding back to that, good, great. I'm not saying you have to, but I take an interest in understanding you in a personal level. Maybe it isn't as much as you want it to be. Maybe it's only as much as you let it be. But I let people into my world. I let them know what I got going on. Like I'll talk about what I have going on this weekend, but let me cover this if you guys want to stick around for that. But I don't want to listen to him talking about what he's doing this weekend about getting his stuff for a wedding and blah, blah, blah. But fill that out, and then I will get back to you. And if I haven't gone back to you yet, like I said, lately, literally, like Fridays and Saturdays tend to be the days I'll get back to you. It used to be where I would do it right then and there. But because those have become my catch-up days and I've become so busy with my multiple businesses, it alters. Some weeks, for the most part, Friday, Saturday, or other weeks will be every single day. Trickle them out. So please be patient with me. You have senators and Congress involved, but nothing. Okay, but that is, again, the right way to approach it at this time. Yeah, but you did everything you could up until this point, as we've been discussing, and it's pretty much out of your reach. It's out of your control until they come back to you and say anything. But the way things are looking, it's very bleak. And it's just so much happening right now with Congress, the U.S. Senate Committee, House of Representatives, everything happening with these other bills and so forth. And then the reconsiderations on top of all of that. There's only a limited amount of people on these files. So just please be patient. Billion, Joe. I think I put that. Let me see over here. Unless I put million in the title, but it's 55 billion. Yeah. You have to be very careful because, like Joe said here, they're tightening credit. Like the EIDL loans, there's a specific credit requirement you have to meet if you're trying to get up to a certain amount. And if you pass that amount, then the requirements of credits are over the 600 over 605, 10, 15 and above. But credit requirements are a huge reasoning behind you getting disapproved, as I mentioned earlier. And I'm going to get into some of the things that are happening here, but I'll try to create a separate video for that. And again, if you guys are just tuning in, next week, SBA EIDL Loan Alternative with the SBA 7A loan and slash the SBA 504 slash CDC. That one right there. If after you're done watching that video, you're like, do I still qualify? It shows me you didn't pay attention. When people come to me and they tell me, I didn't have time to watch a video, I get it. I've been there. I didn't have time to read a blog post, or I did. Yeah, but you just skimmed. Did you remember the part where I said You have to have a business checking account you're using for business if you're doing this. So generally what happens is I'll qualify people before any of this even happens. Hi, Winston. How are you doing? I already spoke about the $55 billion with the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, the most recent bill that's looking to be passed, going through the Senate. Updates coming up next week, hopefully early as Monday, when they come together and they can join and they talk about all of this. But the $55 billion going towards the restaurant, 42 of that $55 billion, and then $13 billion going towards hard impacted economic injury areas, as well as the about $1 billion or so forth in grant funding. But let me see if I can open up a screen here to share with you guys a little bit of information. And then I'm gonna do this. We can get out of here in less than 30 minutes, guys. I think I have it opened over here. Yeah, so I want to make a separate video of this. And this does not pertain to one individual. This was long overdue. And I did trickle this into some of my content already in the past. Perhaps you may have missed it. But let me reiterate some points here. You are very welcome. So before that, though, like I said before, EIDL loans are not everything. They're not the end-all be-all. Don't look at it just as an interest. Think about it as an investment in your own self, in a reflection of your own business. You're like, oh, this guy's talking foolish. No, I'm not a motivational speaker. The thing is, your benefit of what you take has to exceed your repayment. If it does not, you will never justify it. As I spoke to an individual again just recently. Hey, okay, so this is what I'm going to lead into now. So one activity that a lot of business owners are not aware of, and this has happened a lot this week, not with one, two, actually with an individual I just got off the phone with, doing well in revenue, exhausted their options. They can't get an SBA 7A loan. They can't get those loans. They're looking for a better interest loan, but it's just like, unless you have secured assets, you have collateral to give up, sufficient enough of it, equity, accounts receivables, unpaid invoices, if that's how your business operates, if you don't have any of that, we cannot get you the amount you're seeking unless you have the right revenue, and we don't have to offer up collateral. We don't have to offer up commercial real estate and rental investments purpose. We can't do a cash out refinance. You don't have collateral, or you do, it's just not sufficient enough. So this leads me to my next point. I've had a lot of individuals the past weeks, this week a lot, not from one or two, but multiple accounts. Like I just said, I got off the phone with an individual just recently about purchasing an existing business for about $300,000 and above. And what I'm seeing the issue being here is banking activity. What do I mean specifically? Can anybody answer me? Have they ever been declined for a part of banking activity? You run into an error where they're not accepting your business checking account. They're not accepting the way you're depositing your funds into your account. Let me know what problems you are having in that comment section, and I will try to answer them accordingly as I go. I know sometimes you guys try to get a hold of me email. I will do my best. Believe me, when I say I'm busy, it's like I'm busy, and I'm very productive in what I do. So over here, I'm looking at a different doc that I put together. So be careful when doing this. And this is a lot of the case when we're looking at whether it's tax returns, offering bank statements, and so forth, especially with private loans, like the revenue-based ones, primarily based off of a cash flow perspective, not solely credit or collateral or all three together. Sure, they can be a determinant, but if it's cash flow primarily that we're looking at, this is what I want to get into. So transferring your funds between multiple accounts, which from a lender's point of view, you are manipulating your bank statements, whether you don't think you are, or really you're not manipulating, like causing fraudulent activity. That's not the point we're actually like getting to right now. You're not in a way being fraudulent to that extent where you're changing your starting bank balance, your deposits, I've seen this so many times. Your ending bank balance, like what the like, how does this person end up with this amount at the end of the month, but they deposited this and then they had a starting bank balance that was over exceeding all that? Like how? And so people, when I ask them that question, they go, what do you mean? And then I never talk to them. I really don't talk to them again. I don't. Like, I'm not wasting more time on this. My energy could be better used somewhere else. And so what happens is you're transferring your funds between multiple accounts, which from a lender's point of view, you are manipulating your bank statements. Whether you don't think you are, but that's how it looks like and that's how it stands. Therefore, most of your funds are not deposits. Instead, they are transfers from your other bank accounts, which thus equals lower volume after the fact that all happens. All the transfers now reflecting those bank statements. When I ask people, before I ever see bank statements, if I were to gather your bank statements and I looked at the last 90 days or so, just 1 month, perhaps that's all I needed, and I were to see the transactions, the debits, the credits, if I saw what was put in there saying something like transferred, however many times you did it, you have to be careful of that. And I'm going to be getting into some more of these details. So it can look even worse in that case is the industry specific. Like you're doing this already, which is a no-no. And then two, it's industry specific. Like you don't even have the certain amount of revenue we're looking for now, because they are not deposits from a personal account, for example, to a business checking account. That is not counted as, when it's in your business checking account, those transfers, that is not true revenue. That's what we call not being true revenue, stated revenue. Oh, you could tell me you're doing 50,000, but when it's going from personal to business checking, it doesn't hit as 50,000. The only thing that hits, and I'm going to get into in a moment here, and it'll also be a business checking to a business checking, but you have to be careful. We'll look at multiple accounts. We want to primarily look at one account though and see what's happening in there. And what you should be doing is depositing into one primary account each and every time. Your sales deposited into that account. You can have multiple business checking accounts. One you've used for equipment, organization, payroll, yeah, look good. Purchases of this business over there, and the expenses I'm keeping track for that business, separate from this business. But at the end of the day, if you're transferring, and I'm going to get into more specifically of what that could entail, it's not always in your best interest, and you can always assure that you'll be disqualified for funding. I'll get into the comment section in just a moment, Ariana. I appreciate you. Please stick with me. So understand that transferring the way you're transferring may not be sufficient enough, and it's not counted as a true revenue. You may be making far less than you think. You could have deposited 100,000 into that account from this way and that way, but you've only transaction-wise and you've only debited and credited so much. You probably are doing 5,000 in credit and even debit card sales, but you're depositing 50,000 over here and you think that's going to be 55,000 per month. Instead, you have only 5,000. So in another sense, you can also use accounts like Shopify that can be in a way pushed over to a business checking account, and that can work. But what couldn't, and in some cases it wouldn't, depending on how many, could be going into accounts and seeing how they're being transferred into the accounts, however you're accepting payments. I'll get into that in a moment. But if we're talking about, for example, PayPal, that's your primary spot. PayPal working capital, for example, one of many. But those funds are not being moved out of that account into a business checking account, not another personal checking account. When you go through these services, specifically like revenue-based loans / merchant cash advances, you will end up getting declined. So keep that in the back of your mind. So what would be the best option if you can't get that business loan cash advance because of the situation that you're dealing with, where you're transferring from multiple accounts and it doesn't look good and it looks like you're manipulating bank statements, which you may not be? put one account, business checking account, depositing sales. And just be careful about, we can look at other ways, and as long as it's being moved into that business checking account directly, but in some cases it won't be allowed. And it also depends on how much is being pushed into that account and so forth. But saying that I should be getting this amount, and I'm going to get in, I don't want to spoil it right away. So let me see over here. Hold on. I want to find where I put this. Yeah, okay. So what would be the best option if you can't get a business loan / cash advance? Perhaps a personal loan used for your business. Reason being is because we look at credit more than we do cash flow. One second, I'm just reading some comments, but I'll get back to you guys in a moment. So you can use a personal loan for business. It may not get you approved for the desired amount you were looking for, or it may. The thing is, we have to look at returns. We have to even look at the statements, what they're reflecting, and so forth, and make a determination of that. And there's a lot of processes behind that I won't get into here, but it can become a very pushed out where you have now you have a different person who's filing their tax returns so you can get the most amount from their returns. But again, I won't get into all of that in this video. So opposed to cash flow, they will look at the credit. So if you have strong enough of a credit history, then we can look at a personal loan you can use for business. And the thing is too, we can also add on top of that some other type of funding, but for the most part, that would be back-end stuff. This would be on the front end. I said a little bit about how you can take a little bit now and then come back and get more and so forth. So, be careful of transferring your funds. Just don't do it that way. Just have one main account, a business checking for your sales deposits, and this won't be an issue. Personal checking account to business checking account is not actual revenue in your business checking account, and be careful of having too many of those business checking accounts depositing funds into other business checking accounts, because as I said before, it may not even look like those being deposits. And another thing too is the ACH payments and ACH deposits, and then checks. So if that's your situation where you're collecting checks, customers, etc., and this is the way it's reflecting onto your bank statements, post-deposited, that wouldn't be really sufficient when we're looking at it from a cash flow MCA revenue-based loan on this side. Perhaps with some type of an SBA ACH cash advance, there has been that in the past, but it possibly wouldn't even happen because of your industry. And there may be just too much information. There may be too much overloaded into the system that what you're doing, tracking all of that. So there are ACH merchant cash advances, but be careful of it not just being ACH deposits and checks, because if that is what's reflecting and you're not primarily depositing into your business checking account those sales, it's not considered true revenue. And so this stops a lot of people from getting funding. I think I have a little bit more. I'll get to the questions here in just a moment, or comments, excuse me. Oh, another thing too. Boom, right here. In conjunction. Now, deposits. We've established that you have to make deposits into that business checking account. What you must know too is frequency of deposits. How often are you, Joe, Sally, depositing within the last 3 months, 90 days or so, or more? How frequently or even infrequently are you depositing into your accounts? And it's a reflection of what shows on bank statements and so forth. Average daily bank balances, deposits, etc. How frequently? If you're telling me you're doing one deposit per month and it's being deposited, it could be at the end of the month, beginning, middle. That's it. Yeah, but I deposited 100,000. It won't work. you're only relying on one deposit, who knows what will happen if that goes away? You won't be able to make the payments back. Consistency is everything. One payment and then 2 to 3 payments this month and then another 2 payments that month, and then you're back to one payment and then one again. However much it is you're depositing, the more the better. So if you can do it weekly, great. But deposit enough to what you can get approved for. If you don't have enough deposits too, that can also set you back. So one good example, and it doesn't have to be this, you can be depositing 2,000, you could be depositing, and you're like 2,000, I do 30,000. You could be, it's any number, you could be depositing 10,000 a week. I reverse engineer all this stuff. Like I look at businesses and I'll go to them and I'll ask them questions and I'll understand it better. Monthly wise, this is what you're doing, so this is what's happening on a weekly basis, so this is what you have doing daily. How frequently are you depositing? Well, within your business, you should be depositing very simply every single day. And if you're saying you're doing 40,000 a month, you should be depositing at least 10,000 per week, if not more. Simple. But we overcomplicate these things. So more deposits, usually 3 and above, 5 to 7 plus is even better per month, and so forth. So here I put, if you've applied to different places with these issues, you are likely on the lender's watch list. I have a lot of people who are. Not fraudulent wise, but if you have consistently been applying and you're like, why do I keep getting this approved? They're not giving me the full details. Well, could be this. Could be a combination. The system is signaling red flags. This is why you just do not apply anywhere and everywhere without fixing the cause, hence the diagnosis. So if you guys are going to apply Lendios there and doing the lending trees here and all that, just be careful. I'm not saying they're not good, because they can work. They can serve a great purpose. But if you're talking about if I would recommend them as my number one go-to place, yeah. Because doing this and getting funding myself, I know like very well what will happen. So let me come back up here to the comments. And again, you can use a personal account for business, but you'd only get up to 5,000 self-employed, non-W-2 funding, 1099, gig worker, independent contractor. So don't expect the gargantuan amount. Did you? I'm reading what you're saying here, Ariana. Sorry to hear you went through all of that. It's one thing after the next, having this shut down, let alone it be, a daycare. And I have come across this issue with yourself and many others who run daycares. And in a similar situation, I won't get into the specific details. And like yourself, they've gone 6+ months, 7+ months. Maybe it was just a few months. But how you fix all of this, sure, you can go back and say, well, I could have done better with my financial structure of my business, or that's sound enough. But then I also have to understand, year to year, quarter to quarter, what kind of return on an investment am I getting? Do I need to amplify my marketing and advertising? Do I need to bring in more customers? Same ones, likewise, repeat customers. How do I increase revenue to a point where cash flow doesn't become a problem and I'm not having to deal with all of this? How do I tackle on a separate, maybe you have to go take a job. Perhaps it's a form of another business, another venture. I hear you. $1,200 for a restoration grant to cover the 6 months. Got you. With almost 4 months of no income, I can see the in between there. Yeah, when you're given that amount too, Especially when you get like these secured credit cards, some of them are more for newly established, no credit at all business owners. So the limits or the deposit you have to make is minimal compared to other ones where you may not have to have a security deposit, but you'll want to have a business checking account with that specific credit card holder of that company. And you're basically almost like an MCA, like whatever sales or whatever you're making, you pay back in advance, which can be leveraged. It's very good. I've done that before. But just be careful of what you're getting yourself into, not accumulating too much debt because you can do it very quickly, especially with credit cards. Yeah, you need credit in order to qualify for anything else. The thing is, yeah, credit. And sometimes it's not like heavily looked at. We have to look severely at things in some services as opposed to others. Yeah, these sales. You're saying, if you're still in here, if you're not, I'm going to say this. Let's get real. After 2020, people's credit went down. That's why EIDL was great. And you could even go higher in the rates. But the way you got it was easy. Ring the bell right there. Knockout punch. Exactly. What you just said there, it's probably the best thing that's been said on this live. I'm not going to lie. And I appreciate you for contributing and saying that. That is the reason. Yeah. Everybody's credit's gone down. It's gone into the hole, accumulating too much debt, taking on way too much, impacted severely, didn't make payments on time. The list goes on and on. I haven't even touched the surface. So just be very careful about like what you get approved for. Excessive debt, some programs like the SBA look at that. They won't approve you. It just won't work. You could tell me you're doing $1 billion per month, but you have over 100,000, 50,000, 200,000 in debt and so forth. It's become excessive. You want your 10K? Mm-hmm. Speaking towards the Targeted Advance grant, or what specifically, Joseph, if you're still in here? Yeah, I know a lot of people have been left out on these, and a lot of them stuck in the queue. So believe me, like the EIDL loans right now are being worked on. So I'm going to let this go for a little bit more, but I'm going to get going in a moment. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to voice it to me in the comment section. It doesn't even feel like it's 1 o'clock. I feel like I've aged 20 years today because I've spoken to so many people, like Messenger, email. Today was definitely one of those days. I couldn't blog really. I did release a video that should be out next week. But yeah, I've had a lot going on today. Yeah, I hear you, Ariana. I mean, we're still looking for an update on that. There's nothing concrete happening around the Targeted Advance grant. Otherwise, I would have released this earlier. But, you know, we can stand up and only do so much. Like we have to put our voice out there, and that's how they get this point across, and this is how we're able to open that up. The reconsideration process, Marcelius, how are you doing? So it's just, it depends per file. You know, you have different documentation you have to provide, one of those being 4506T form, the tax transcripts, etc. And it's just, I don't want to get into the specifics because I've released content on this already and it can be more in depth, but it may not even be an option at this point because of those who are being evaluated in the queue. But you have until the 16th, which is Monday. If not, they leave it open, but could be closing the portal on that day to check for any updates you may have been given. But it's unlikely that you'll be given an option to request an increase at this point. Right? Yeah, it is. I've been following it closely. I don't want to get into everything though, like politicians and politics wise. California receiving 97 billion for which specific sector? I may jump on TikTok after this for a moment. If you guys want to join me there, I'm going to keep it short though. I was over here looking through some of my documentation. PPP loan, not so much, Jill, not right now. Have you been, I'm sure you have been, going through your EIDL loan emails, your back portal? I mean, every case is different. I can't say, I can speak to the specific framework, but each individual, what they're going through reconsideration for specifically, it's per case. So I can't just say, hey, did you do this? Did you do that? So it'll depend on each person. I'm going to give this about another 2 to 3 minutes. But while I'm doing that, my handy dandy. I know it isn't, what's the word? Punctual to be on a phone, but this is time sensitive and I have a specific file that I have to look at. So while we're on here, I'll continue here. Yeah. I might bring up an example right here. Already high risk. Yeah, that won't work right now. So I'm gonna move out of that one. I'll spend time tomorrow, hopefully, on that. Okay. So I'll give this again, let's say another minute. I'm about ready to go have a nap. See, on a heavy day like today, because I wasn't on here earlier, or yesterday, I mean, what I'll then do is I'll go, still have to go to the store, wedding shopping, might just do it tomorrow. And then I have to go jog, get my routine back. Yeah, I haven't been investigating or looking deeply into all that right now. And so that's what I'll be doing. But yeah, I'll take a look at that for sure. Just so much happening this week, guys. Like a lot of files being sent, a lot of declines, a lot of approvals, a lot of people just still in the process. Keep submitting them, keep bringing them in. And if you guys need clarity on anything, I'll be there to help you guys for sure. All right, let's see, 30 seconds. But thanks for bringing that up, Marcelius. Appreciate it. Oh, I guess I should say this because sometimes I forget to. Everything you guys can find is in the description down below. So the business questionnaire form, how to get a hold of me, and so forth. I still have a lot of people. So if you're looking for business funding, an alternative, like plenty of you guys are, please refer to everything down below. Next week, I'll be releasing the SBA 7A. Ten, 9, 5, 4, 3. I'm counting down like I'm going to be going into like a hypnosis state. Fall asleep. All right, everybody. That'll conclude everything for this week. I appreciate you guys' time for being here. And like always, keep tuning in. Stay on top of this information. The latest news, I'll be releasing it over time. And if you ever need any help and assistance, just know I'm a friendly human being. And I'm never here to pressure you to do something you don't want to do. I'm here to consult with you. I'm here to help guide you and show you the reality of, hey, let's get you back on track. It's okay. This is what we need to do. Your avenue is right here. Her avenue is over there. Let's just stop looking over at what she's doing and let's focus on what you have going on over here. So that'll be all. Thank you all for being here. Have an amazing and blessed weekend. Get out there, enjoy it, and have a good time. Talk to you all.